Welcome, it's Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Ritchie, good to be with you. We got a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, we have been Carollo. That is going to be quite amazing. So forgive me in advance, my notes are on a computer screen to my left. So I will refer to my notes momentarily as we break down the stories. Now, if you remember, we had a Karenicity situation that we covered on Indisputable. It was actually an anti-Karen. His name is Rashad Lee, making me proud in them streets. We have a surprise for you in the bullpen. That is all I'm going to say. All right, top story of the day. South Carolina, let's put up a picture of the governor. Yeah, South Carolina governor, his name is Henry McMaster. Governor McMaster is for this. South Carolina has given the green light for condemned prisoners in the state to be executed by a firing squad. Yeah, they're bringing back the firing squad. Final approval came after the State Department of Corrections said renovations had been completed on a new death chamber where the executions can take place in the state capital of Columbia. The electric chair is the state's primary method of execution. But a May 2020 law, this law was passed last year, now allows prisoners to choose to die by lethal injection or firing squad, the state said in a press release. Now I'm going somewhere with this. The new chamber, which cost $53,600 to build, consists of a metal chair with restraints that faces a wall. The wall has a rectangular opening where 3 shooters can carry out the sentence. Witnesses can watch the action behind bulletproof glass. Inmates will receive a hood and be allowed to make a final statement. They're not the only ones. Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Utah, they also allow for death by firing squad. Now let me remind you, at one time, the US Supreme Court said this was cruel and unusual punishment. It is now being brought back to state governments. The death penalty is a waste, a complete waste of taxpayer money, and has no public safety benefit whatsoever. The vast majority of law enforcement professionals surveyed agree that capital punishment does not deter crime, violent crime. A survey of police chiefs nationwide found that they rank the death penalty lowest among ways to reduce violent crime. Innocent people are too often sentenced to death. Since 1973, over 156 people have been released from death rows in 26 states because of innocence. They never did it. Nationally, at least 1 person is exonerated for every 10 that are executed. That's what we know about on the record. Now, let's go to the states. 10 out of the 12 states without capital punishment have homicide rates below the national average. So look at that. States that do not have a death penalty actually have lower homicide rates. The FBI data shows while half the states with the death penalty have homicide rates above the national average. In a state-by-state analysis, the Times found that during the last 20 years, the homicide rate in states with the death penalty has been 48% to 101% higher than states without the death penalty. Now, governments need to just say what it is. While governors will still tell you, oh, this is about deterring crime. This is about sending a message to would-be killers. So it justifies the state killing somebody. I'm anti-death penalty, by the way. But they use this false premise that does not bear out in the facts. If their premise was accurate, then states with death penalties would have a lower murder rate. They would have a lower capital murder ratio, but they don't. The reality is these things do not stop these extreme crimes, not at all. All right, Ben, thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to go with this, right? First and foremost, there's a ton of innocent people that get wrapped up into this and unfortunately end up getting executed because while 1 in 10 people get exonerated nationally, there's a lot of people that are innocent that don't get exonerated because for whatever reason, their case just doesn't work out on appeal. But then there's also the cultural significance, which I think is really what the Republicans want here. The truth of the matter is we are seeing a escalation this rhetoric from a lot of Republicans right now. And amid that escalation, we are also seeing this push for things like firing squads. I feel like it's fundamentally impossible to disconnect those two things from each other. And I'm gonna go ahead on a limb and say that having something like a firing squad in your state, if anything, is gonna increase the murder rate. Because ultimately what it does is it propagates a culture of violence that deems some people unworthy of life. And by trying to deem people as unworthy of life, it gives tacit permission for people in the general public to decide within their own minds who is and is not a criminal. And that right there, that devaluing of human life, most definitely leads to a litany of different types of violence that we see, including things like hate crimes and domestic violence, etc.
And I want people to understand this. Just because the government says it's okay to do doesn't make it somehow okay to do. The government engages in premeditated homicide when they engage in the death penalty. That's what it is. Make no mistake about it. And once again, their entire premise rests on a lie. It does not stop these kinds of crimes from happening. And I believe personally, Ben, that life without the possibility of parole for individuals that deserve not to be on the street again. There are some people, they don't deserve to walk among us ever again. I believe that. I think having them locked up until they die inside of that jail of natural causes is a worse penalty than having the lethal injection or anything else. And governments, at some point, they gotta be honest. Why are they really doing it, man? Why do they really have the death penalty? It's for vengeance. It's vengeance, that's what it is. And they feel as if this settles the score, so to speak. But you have to be very careful. You cannot become the evil you wish to eradicate. If you're saying that murder is an evil, don't engage in murder to eradicate the evil you proclaim to step and stand against. Let me go to this story. A man took a hostage to a job interview. Where was he interviewing? He was interviewing at the county jail. El Paso, Texas. Let's highlight, let's put up his picture. Yeah. There he is. A Texas man was arrested after police said he kidnapped a woman, forced her to accompany him to a job interview at the Otero County Jail. His name is Matthew Contreras. In a news release, the police said they arrested Matthew Contreras, 25 years of age, after investigators said he physically attacked the victim, then forced her to go to the interview at gunpoint. The victim was eventually able to attract the attention of an officer in the parking lot and received help. Court documents obtained by KVI show the victim was in a relationship with Contreras and the pair had been living together for several years. The victim told police she woke up to find Contreras going through her phone, after which he accused her of cheating on him. Contreras is accused of punching and kicking the victim, threatening her with both knife and gun, cutting her hair with the knife, and pouring bleach on her body. KVIA reported. The victim told police at one point the suspect put a gun in her mouth. The victim told the police, she said, "Just kill me already," at one point. Police told KVIA the couple then drove to the jail where Contreras had a job interview with their 2-year-old son in the car. Now, there's not definite confirmation as to what job he was applying for. But we have seen time and time again that individuals who act in this manner are attracted to the profession of policing or being around that profession. We have seen the surveys that shows, based on self-reported data, individuals in law enforcement, roughly 40% of them, 40% plus, they engage in some level of violence in their relationships. Well, that's staggering. That's the highest in the profession of any other profession. Ben, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is just an absolutely horrifying situation. And like with what you said, like I can't help but think about how things might have played out differently had he already got the job. Because I guess we don't know exactly what job he was applying for, but let's say he was applying for some sort of law enforcement position at the jail. We know the history of law enforcement, basically having that, the blue line that they hold, where they don't call each other out for like the crimes that they have committed. And so ultimately, I think there's probably a lot more situations that are similar to this that we're not getting the full story on that happen in other places, and that we're, I guess, lucky as a public that he didn't get the job. Obviously, we need to be very, very lucky that a police officer noticed what was going on and saved the victim from this situation, because that's an absolutely terrifying situation to be in. But this tendency of people who sort of have this inclination to abuse power, to go out of their way to seek positions of power, is really something that needs to be reconciled with, that we just as a society haven't.
We got more on the other side. Is indisputable. Stick and stay. All right, welcome back. We still got a lot of show left. Let me read some of these comments before I get into the rest of it. Before I go to the comments, remember every day the watch list, the big homie JR Jackson, beautiful show. Go to tyt.com/watchlist TYT, follow, subscribe, and support the show. That's live every weekday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Find out the stories that you should be paying attention to. It covers a lot of ground: news, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. Also, watch the Young Turks on Local Now, streaming across your favorite devices. Find us in the news section. Stay connected to what's happening near you with Local Now, your one-stop shop for free local news, weather, and more. Choose from over 200 local streams to find the news and info that's most relevant to you. Local Now has over 200 live channels, thousands of free movies to choose from. Local Now, where you are is where it's at, all right? Okay. Let's read some of these comments. Dana Manning, wait, the person decides the way they are executed? That's grotesque. WTF. How about we get rid of the death penalty? Oh, but conservatives are so bloodthirsty. They need to call for people's death, just as they treated lynchings as entertainment. That's correct. Lynn, I wonder how many innocent people will be executed by the firing squad. Abstract Dragon, the bloodlust of our fellow citizens is truly disturbing, and I concur. All right, we have an update to a story. Now here's how I'm gonna do this. We reported on a story about an officer who experienced extreme racism inside of his shift. He was on a text message thread where his white colleagues talked about starting a race war. They were anti-Black Lives Matter, wanted them to die, and the list goes on. In order for him to be in this group, one of his colleagues said that, well, he's actually half white, to make him more digestible to the white officers around him. Let's put up a picture of the person in charge of that command unit. His name is Chief Daryl McSwain. He's the chief of the Montgomery County Division and is overseeing the discipline of the officers involved. And I'm going to highlight that. Now, here's what we did in reporting just a few days ago. There was another chief that we highlighted at Indisputable. His name is Stanley. Stanley was not the correct chief, but I'm going to also give you information of how the two got conflated. We were contacted by the Prince George County Division of the Maryland National Park Police. So here it is. The Maryland National County Park is split between Prince George and Montgomery, okay? When researching for the story, the articles that covered the incident showed both. It did not make a distinction between Prince George and Montgomery County. Thus, in the process, we identified the other division and that division chief. That division chief, his name is Stanley Johnson. I apologize to Officer Stanley Johnson. Now, I will give you the background to that story. If you remember, this was about a lawsuit that has been filed by an officer, Mark Miles. Mark Miles of the Maryland National Capital Park Police, Montgomery County, is filing a lawsuit against officers who sent him racist and abusive messages, reported the Daily Record. The suit claims the officer spoke in a group chat about triggering a race war that with mentions toward far-right extremist groups. Miles joined the police division in April 2020, becoming the only black officer on his shift. The lawsuit said those involved were other officers on his shift and a supervisor who often made his race a subject of conversation. Here's what's in the complaint. The complaint alleges that Miles' supervisor in shift 5, Sergeant Stephanie Harvey, told Miles that other officers in the squad were worried they could not trust him because of his race, as if blackness is somehow a crime. Harvey told Miles that she'd informed the other officers that he was in fact half white and half black. As soon as he was added to the group, Harvey allegedly sent a photo of a black child that said, "Well, hello, MFer." On another occasion, Harvey texted the group, "They want a race war. Okay, let's go. Miles, you're on our side. At least half of you is." That's in written commentary. Harvey did not stop there. According to the complaint, she also proudly proclaimed herself as a racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. Then went further to suggest it was time to start killing Black Lives Matter protesters to kick off a civil war. Another officer responded back, "Boogaloo is coming," referring to a far-right extremist movement. Per the suit, Harvey was also alleged to be dismissive of racial bias training and claimed racism was simply made up, even though, according to the narrative, she in fact said she's racist. Now, remember, these are people with significant public trust. They have a gun, they have a badge, they have a police report. They are typically trusted by many, not by all, but they have a lot of power. If a person believes you are less than human, that you are something subhuman, that you are in fact the N-word or worthy of their racial and homophobic slurs, do you think they can be fair in their pursuit and application of actual justice? Or do you think the bias of who they are plays out in the profession that they are in? That is what makes this dangerous. That is why this should be covered and highlighted. Once Miles reported these messages to another supervisor, they retaliated against him. Instead of looking into the issue, Miles was removed from the group chat. Now remember, he got all of this in writing, excluded from work events, and even when he called for backup at a high-risk stop, no one showed up. Do you think they give a damn about law enforcement? The lawsuit calls for Harvey to be fired and for the department to monitor employment complaints of misconduct to make sure no one has to go through what Miles did. Miles is also seeking compensation for the physical and emotional distress, humiliation, and embarrassment he endured, reported WTOP News, okay? Now, after we did the initial story, we got a response from the police division. I'm going to read the statement issued. When a series of secret text messages among a group of Park police officers came to the attention of our management, we promptly initiated an investigation and took appropriate action based on the findings of that inquiry. In accordance with the Maryland Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, several officers were suspended, and referred to the disciplinary process for termination. Not fired on the spot, suspended. Some of them were recommended for termination. The statement continues. While we cannot disclose the details of individual personnel actions or pending proceedings, the suggestion that the Park Police Management ignored allegations of misconduct by this group of officers is simply incorrect. And we will make the results of the trial board process public at the appropriate time. Our Park Police leadership team does not tolerate racism or harassment in the workplace and will not hesitate to put a stop to any such behavior whenever it rises. Once again, put up a picture of the chief. Chief Daryl McSwain. Okay, here's the reality, chief, and to the management. You don't have a policy problem, you have a cultural problem. Because the officer took this information to you. According to the officer, I believe him more than I believe you. The officer said you retaliated against him. Kicked him out of the group chat, no longer invited him to events. It was retaliatory, it was retaliation at its best. That's what happened. I do believe his lawsuit. Now, for the individual that I named in a previous report, Chief Stanley, you have my sincere apologies. This brother is the actual problem. Put up his picture again. There's no way in the hell you have a brother in charge of a racist ass shift of police officers and all they get is a damn suspension, and all of you all are hiding and protecting those cops. I would leak the names personally and then tell you I did it at the press conference. That's how you make an example of cops who do not give a damn about the public trust they have. You make examples out of criminals, do you not? I'm sure you've held a press conference or two and said, we're going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law and make examples out of those who would dare violate the common trust in this community. Good for you. You got criminals amongst you. What are you going to do? Ben, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different directions here. Like, let's just assume in good faith that all of these police officers that were involved in this lose their jobs. But that wouldn't be enough, would it? Because we would need to make sure that they don't get a job in another police department. Yep. And then we need to be looking backwards into all of the people that they've arrested and why they've arrested these people. Every public defender in the country should have a list of police officers who've said and done things like this, because the truth of the matter is there are probably innocent people who are in prison right now today based off of the testimony of some of these police officers. And I fully believe that. And I think that it's something that is worth following up on. And that's one of the reasons why it's so terrible to have police officers like this, because ultimately, even if somebody's guilty and they're in prison, if you have a police officer like this that's doing and saying all of these things, well, then the entire record of all of the people they put in prison comes into question. And would some guilty people also get let free? Yeah, probably, but that's not their fault. That's these police officers' fault and the police department's fault for allowing this to be the culture that they have.
That's right, very well said. And let me remind everyone, this is truly defunding the police. The police will pay money in order to settle lawsuits, and nobody on the right or the conservative side says, well, that's defunding the police, we should stand against that. Well, good, if you stand against defunding the police, that means you stand against corrupt cops that violate the civil and human rights of citizens. You have to stand against them because they're the ones defunding the police. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
I feel free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. Go back to Mexico.
I said, excuse me.
Go back, wherever you're from.
I said, excuse me, don't be rude.
You're the one that's rude.
No, I said,
yes,
excuse me, I'm trying to buy something.
You're in America.
So?
You're in America.
So what?
That's none of your business. Stay out of it.
I don't need to stay out of it.
I said, excuse me.
For everybody to hear. Stop being ignorant.
Calling me ignorant?
Oh,
yes.
My
all this
goodness.
To Mexico and all that stuff.
Oh
yes,
my goodness.
absolutely.
You are very rude.
No, You're the one that's rude.
I said, excuse me, because I'm trying to grab my medicine.
You told me, you know what you told me, and I ain't
Yes,
gonna
I
put up
said,
with it.
I said, if you don't like it, I'm
Just go
sorry.
on. Just go on. Just go on. Get your stuff and
Whatever.
get out of here.
No, I'm
And
not
then go
gonna
back
get
to
out of
Mexico.
here. No, I'm not.
Are you
Because
gonna
this
stand
is
here
my
and
country.
argue?
Yes, this is my
It's not
country.
your
Oh,
country.
yes, it is.
No, we don't
Oh,
want
yes,
you
it
here.
is. I don't care.
We don't want you
I don't
here.
care what you want or not.
We do want you here.
Leave me
That's
alone.
not true.
No.
Yeah.
How rude. How rude.
Get her to
No, ma'am.
leave me alone.
This is inappropriate.
Ridiculous.
Tell her.
No, ma'am.
Tell her.
It's
I
inappropriate.
said, excuse
Speak
me.
for the store.
I'm not here for the store.
You're in the store.
I'm spending money in the store.
So am I.
So we're both
Please
customers.
go. Please go. Get out of here.
How rude.
Yep, that's a mean one right there. Okay, so we got another Karen on the loose here. This Karen goes through all of the traditional tropes. Go back to where you came from. This is America. Nobody wants you here. But there were some anti-Karens shopping that same day. Anti-Karens brings a smile to my face because all of us are empowered to be anti-Karens. And I was really pleased when the man said, no, we want you here. Good for him. Because out of that entire exchange, the young lady who was experiencing the venom of that bigoted Karen, maybe what that man said in that moment provides some relief for her to let her know we're all not the same here. And there are those who stand against people like that. But we do something very special on Indisputable. We are a mirror to the culture. We provide an opportunity for reflection and correction. We hope this particular Karen gets her life together and reflects upon what she did. Ben, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you really like to see people standing up to racists, especially making racists feel like they're alone in their racism, that their bigotry is exactly what makes them isolated. And they're invited to be a part of everybody else having a good time if they drop their racism and if they drop their bigotry. And that is just really what you love to see. And I also just want to touch on something that she said that I thought was kind of funny. Like she said, oh, this is America, this is America. In response to just being asked to move so that this person could get their medicine from the shelf. Like as though being in the United States means that you don't need to be polite. Like there's still an expectation, right? I know we like to talk about freedom, but we all still owe each other like some basic human decency. And that means a little bit of like mental and emotional work to understand, oh, maybe I'm the person that's being rude by being in the way, and maybe I should just move a little bit. It doesn't take much, but you can see where it goes when you're not willing to give it.
Very well said. All right, I got something for everybody. Double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off.
I'm gonna tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Got my chances of my marathon. You're really gonna pay. Really gonna pay. Side hurts.
Man, with all due respect, you're in my lane.
Excuse me, wait a minute. First of all, we returning.
Jackass, I was in that lane first and you hit me. I was changing lanes. Say, oh, I was in my lane.
Turns in line to proceed in this lane. You proceed.
Normal car, sign on the way.
You're completely 100% at fault if you're turning this. You. Because you're gonna pay.
I asked
No.
nicely to stop multiple
No. No, I don't have to stop you. Me.
She's been like this for 5 minutes.
I'm scared.
Are you hurt at all? Do me a favor,
Yeah, no problem. Well, I also want to.
This is simple geometry here. Karen, you're not in your lane. I don't care what you were trying to do, you failed at the execution of it. You're wrong. And your verbal escalation is wrong as well. But once again, here's what happens. A person is so privileged that they believe that every traffic law and even the street itself should change rules because they were trying to make an illegal turn. Ben, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's main character syndrome strikes again, right? People walk around thinking I'm the main character in the world. Any mild inconvenience against me is clearly the greatest travesty that's ever happened in the history of the world. And heaven forbid anybody suggests that I might slightly be at fault at something. And like, that's the thing. If you are in a car accident and you're at fault, you can just be like, oh my goodness, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, I get it. Like, it makes it complicated for insurance stuff or whatever. But like, your insurance company is gonna find out who's at fault anyway. So just apologize. And there's no need to scream at the top of your lungs because you caused a car accident.
Yeah, accidents happen. Keep you cool, you'll get through it. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay. All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Let me read a few of these fascinating comments. Okay, TWT member, just another radical dragon. It's true, they didn't ignore the complaints. They retaliated against the complaint. That's right, the complainant. That's not ignoring it, it's worse. You are absolutely correct. They did not, let me correct myself again. They did not ignore the complaint. They actually retaliated against the man complaining, correct. Lynn, stop being ignorant, bravo, that's right. Anti-Karenicity there. I think this is Wani R. This is what real news sounds like. Thank you. Braille W, Dr. Rashad, I respect you for apologizing for the mix-up. It shows that you have integrity. Thank you for that. And on a personal note, I've also reached out so that I can apologize directly to that chief. It broke my heart over the weekend that I couldn't do it sooner, okay? We aim to get things right here. The story was right, the picture was wrong, so an element of the story is wrong, and we want to get that right. And we would do that every time, okay? We cannot give anyone perfection, but we can always give you integrity, all right? Okay, a black DoorDash driver. Black DoorDash driver gets pulled over by the police. Here's what happens.
Me. You can't do that, officer, because I called for your supervisor. I have my license. What is the reason I'm getting out?
Give your information. I told you.
I didn't refuse. I asked.
Now you're resisting.
I haven't refused. I asked to speak to your supervisor.
Get out.
Sir, I feel uncomfortable. Please get your supervisor.
I don't give a
Don't touch me.
I said get out.
Please stop it. Why are you being like this? Is how y'all really are? Please stop. This is all on tape. Please stop.
Get out of the car.
Please don't hurt me. Why are you doing this? No, sir.
I'm telling you, get out.
I'm telling you that this is not lawful. Oh my God, that's not lawful, sir.
Get out.
That's not lawful.
Get out.
The young man had not broken any laws. Put up a graphic of the cop grabbing this DoorDash driver. This happened on March 10th in Collegedale, Tennessee. Delani Gordon, a black DoorDash driver, was only moments away from making his next delivery when a cop passed, made a U-turn, pulled over Gordon for speeding, okay? According to an update, that cop has not been relieved of duty. There is no suspension. He has not been put on leave, nothing. According to his attorney, Gordon never believed he was speeding. When Mr. Gordon asked why he was being pulled over and requested for a supervisor, that's when things escalated. You have the right to request a supervisor, by the way. Gordon was fearful in the moment because he's never dealt with an irate officer. In an email to the Washington Post, Lieutenant Jamie Heath of the Collegedale Police Department said the body cam footage would be made available once investigations were closed. They also decided not to identify the officer. The footage captured by Gordon shows only 49 seconds of the incident. But his attorney, Ryan Wheeler, who released the video Friday to spark conversation in the community and raise awareness, said the interaction had escalated too quickly, and I agree. Questioning a police officer should not be met with an immediate escalation, should not be met with an officer interpreting the exchange as a challenge to his authority, Attorney Ryan Willis said to the news conference on Friday. Willis said the public should be able to have respectful interactions with police without it escalating as it did in this incident. And I agree with the attorney on that. Gordon, who Willis said was unarmed, was charged with resisting arrest and obstruction of justice. Think about this. Think about the insanity of that. Resisting arrest for what? He wasn't supposed to be in a position to be arrested. He did nothing illegal. The cop made all of this up. If it had not been for the cop, this would not have been an issue, right? So you got to think about it this way, because you always think solution-based, right? Cops should respond to crimes, to real crimes that actually put people in danger, right? When the cop is creating the criminal element and then charging you for a crime, and the only factor that lands you in jail is the fact that you had a conversation with a cop. Not because you did something illegal, not because the cop caught you doing something against the law, caught you doing a felony, robbing a bank or still, no. It's because you had an interaction with the cop and the cop didn't like how you handled the response. This is why professionalism matters, right? This is why de-escalation is a policy remedy. This is why it's taught to police officers. Unfortunately, sometimes the culture eats the policy alive. So he was arrested and charged with resisting arrest, obstruction of justice. The attorney said his client is focused on dealing with these charges. Gordon has no criminal history, and we want to keep it that way. Now, let me give you some of the people involved. Let me take you to the DA. Put up a picture of the district attorney. His name is Neil Pinkston. He's the DA. Now, what has the DA done? Now, watch this political, let me kick the ball to somebody else. Without describing the incident, keep his picture up. Without describing the incident or naming Mr. Gordon, the DA's office requested the county sheriff to investigate a traffic stop incident by the Collegedale Police Department involving a driver facing the same charges as Gordon. So let me get this right. Hold on, wait a minute. The DA's office, by the way, the DA is elected as an investigative body also, not only to prosecute, but to investigate crimes. So the DA is saying, let's kick this on down to the sheriff. Let the sheriff investigate. Let police investigate the police. Yeah, that'll do it. When the DA is empowered to investigate law enforcement, the DA all of a sudden wants the sheriff to investigate law enforcement. I wonder, has the DA done this before for anyone else? See, this is why people don't like the police typically. It's because of these special rules, because of these nuances that don't make sense. Have you ever heard of the DA saying, we're going to get to the bottom of it, so I have instructed this unrelated police agency to investigate by my request? The DA can't even run the sheriff's office. The DA has no authority over a constitutionally officer, such as a sheriff. None. Let's put up a picture of the police chief, Collegedale police chief. His name is Jack C. Sapp III. Yeah. In a Facebook post, March 15th, the department said it will be cooperating fully with the sheriff's probe and added that it is conducting its own investigation. Well, damn, everybody's investigating except the DA. So let me get this right. The city police, they're investigating themselves. The sheriff is investigating the city police by request of the investigative authority known as the DA, but the DA is investigating nobody. Do you really think they're going to render a decision that is favorable to the victim of this cop? Of course not. This insanity has to stop. Ben, thoughts?
I mean, my first thought is the fact that, this man, when he's getting pulled over, he trusted the system enough to ask for a supervisor. He thought that bringing in a supervisor was a good option. He was like, I feel unsafe in this situation, so you know what I'm gonna do? We're just gonna ask the supervisor to show up just because that would make me feel more comfortable. So this is clearly somebody who's not like, this isn't somebody that's in the 8-cab crowd, I'm assuming, because he at least has enough trust in the system to think that bringing a supervisor would help the situation if he feels unsafe. So obviously, he got done really wrong here in this instance. And what is really frustrating about this is this pervasive mentality that is the result of police officers largely having a lot of impunity from committing acts of violence, where police officers basically know that they can do violence to you without repercussion, but you're not in the same position, right? Your job is to be, like obviously very peaceful. And so that imbalance of force right there that the system allows basically lets police officers treat any even question to them as some sort of threat, and then they escalate instead of taking a step back.
Well said. And listen, I got a friend that drives for DoorDash. In order to get that damn approval, you have to basically go through a CIA background check. All right, that cop knew that man was legit. Cop kills a teen, gets 1 year in jail. Let's put up a picture. This is so sad. Former Lonoke County Sheriff Deputy Michael Davis on the left and Hunter Britton on the right. This former Arkansas Sheriff's deputy was convicted of killing that young man. The charge of conviction was negligent homicide. The sentence, 1 year in jail. He killed a 17-year-old during a traffic stop. He's only going to get 1 year in jail, okay? The jury found Davis guilty of the charge. Now, you may wonder, how in the world do you get only 1 year in jail for something that leads to the death? It's called negligent homicide. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in Arkansas, negligent homicide is a misdemeanor. It is a misdemeanor offense. He gets 1 year, but not on the more serious offense of manslaughter. Negligent homicide is a misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in prison. Manslaughter is a felony for which David would have faced between 3 and 10 years, but that's not what it is. That's not what happened. That's not what they decided to charge and convict on. Rebecca Payne, the young man's mother, said family members wanted the deputy convicted of the felony to ensure he could not serve as a law enforcement officer again. Now what's going to happen? Are people going to have to fear for their lives again? She told reporters, ma'am, I'm so sorry for your loss, but yes, that's right. A misdemeanor does not prohibit a cop from being a cop. He has been convicted of an offense that will allow him to remain what's called post-certified or to obtain post-certification from another state in the future. He has no felony on his record, even though he has a dead body, a teenage body that he killed him. Meanwhile, Davis's attorney plans to challenge the conviction. It says Davis was fired after the shooting by Sheriff John Staley. Let's put up a picture of the sheriff. Okay, that's the sheriff that let him go. Because Davis did not turn on his body camera until after he left the shooting. Now remember, the body camera thing, right? We've talked about this extensively on Indisputable. Here's how you enforce the body camera rule. If your police division does not have body cameras in your local community, you make sure they get them. I'm saying this to everyone, regardless of political affiliation. That's good for community, that's good for cop. If they are good cops, they want everything to be recorded because that protects them from lies. And community, well, you already know, it protects them from corrupt cops, right? So it's a good thing, but it would never be implemented fully until your local jurisdiction passes laws that says if you manipulate this camera, you will be charged with tampering with evidence. That's a felony. If you manipulate the footage, if you turn it off, if you choose not to turn it on, you will be charged with tampering with evidence. Infraction without enforcement means nothing. Okay, Davis pulled over the 17-year-old Britton on June 23rd, 2021, giving you background to this story. Davis told investigators that he shot the 17-year-old once in the neck during the stop outside an auto repair shop after the teen exited his truck and reached into the bed of the pickup while failing to comply with his commands to show his hands, according to the arrest affidavit. Britton was holding a container, which his family members have said held antifreeze, and no evidence of firearms were found in or near the truck, investigators said. A passenger with Britton said he and the teen had been working on the transmission for Britton's truck. Britton's family members have said he was grabbing the container to place behind the truck's wheel to stop it from rolling backward. The passenger and another witness testified they never heard Davis tell the teen to show his hands. And there was also an initial report from this story. We covered this initially. There was a report from this story that said the young man told the officer why he needed to do it. It was actually to protect the cop. It was to stop the truck from rolling back on the police officer. So in his attempt to actually save the police, he gets killed. Ben.
I mean, this is just absolutely infuriating because, I mean, like the 1 year sentence, like, I don't know, like I personally am somebody that is in favor of like shorter sentences and things like that, but we need to understand this is a law enforcement officer. We need to understand if he's not turning on his camera, then that would suggest that there's a little bit more forethought or at least even more extreme negligence. And we also need to understand this is a person who's in a position of power who should know better, who should be more responsible. And I personally think there should be a separate higher standard for law enforcement officers whenever they're facing criminal charges, that they should face more severe criminal charges because of the position that they hold. Because I mean, this is just a 17-year-old. I mean, he's just a young kid. And for a routine traffic stop to end in somebody's like losing their life is just absolutely tragic, but especially somebody who hasn't even experienced the majority of life. And it's just absolutely infuriating to see that he might have the potential to become a law enforcement officer again and do exactly the same thing potentially in the future.
And I want to say this, it was all by design. They designed the charge this way. They designed the conviction this way. He is now allowed, based on regular statute, he is allowed to be a police officer. This is only a misdemeanor conviction. And you don't think there's some police chief out there, there's some sheriff out there, some governor out there who would not hire this individual? Of course. All right, let me read some of these amazing comments. Jonathan Feliciano, how was the driver obstructing justice or resisting arrest in his own car? Goddess Leo says police need to start answering the citizens' questions. They supposed to work for us since we pay their wages. And it was such a simple thing. It wasn't as if this is a guy you're chasing from some kind of crime. This is just the person you said, I think he was speeding. And remember, obviously, the young man was correct when he said, I don't think I was speeding at all, because guess what? He didn't get charged with speeding. All right. Jenna Wright, took a lot more than 1 year from that child, that's right. Roger Harris, and a spit in the face to the victim's family. It's very sad, isn't it? Sith 27, wow, so you could really get away with murder pretty easily in Arkansas. Yep, always great having you on Indisputable. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Yeah, you can catch me on Galaxy Brain every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time on the Young Turks Twitch channel. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Carollo.
Thank you, my friend. Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. if it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.